guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 28th of July, 2019. Is it a what?
Is it already?
It is already. It's almost August. It's a Sunday. Every Sunday, we bring you the latest of European and UK, pretty much just world news. And today, one of the biggest topics that we are going to talk about is the new Prime Minister. It is not Theresa May. It kind of feels weird, right? That it's not Theresa May anymore. Like, she's done, she's washed up, she's a has-been, and now we've got Boris Johnson, and you'll note with the picture that I chose, he comes out of, and he's in front of number 10, and he gives the thumbs up. They're equating Boris Johnson to the UK's President Trump. I have to disagree there.
He's not him.
He's just kind of, the reason why they're doing that is because Boris Johnson has no filter either. And that's the only reason why they, are similar in that. Boris Johnson just says whatever he wants to say, and so does President Trump. But that outside of that, they are very different.
They're very different.
They both have blonde, wacky hair.
Yeah, they do kind of look a little similar, too.
I saw a cartoon of Trump handing him a comb. Yeah.
That's funny. So we're going to break apart whether he should be trusted, whether you should put hope in him. I know for a fact that if Nigel's in charge, you can put your hope in Nigel because he believes in it. His heart is in it.
Yeah.
Remember, Boris Johnson has flip-flopped a lot. So we're going to cover that because even though he says a lot of great things, it's actions that matter. And I think that that's what we've learned for you guys in the UK.
Right. A little less talk,
a little more action.
Right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Boris Johnson has this great hair.
Mm-hmm.
It is better than Trump's.
Mm-hmm. It is. So, while people are showing up, I'm going to actually start here because I want to...
Defense of Paul Joseph Watson when he...
Candace Owens had on Paul Joseph Watson, and why this meant a lot to me was because during all of the bannings, Candace Owens has probably one of the biggest voices right now, pro-Trump voices on social media. And if she says something, then President Trump hears it. I don't exactly know how she got to this position, but she is quick, she is smart, and she's got facts that just roll right off her tongue that the rest of us don't have. And she is more articulate than a lot of us.
Yeah.
So
no, she really is.
She's just so fast with her comebacks and with her, and that's why she gets sound bites. Mm-hmm. And Trump loves the sound bites. So she's really good at that. And so she has a platform. And so the question is, everybody was asking, hey, Candace Owens, are you going to use your platform now for good, for those who are maligned, for Milo, for Laura Loomer, for Gavin McInnes, people who are outliers, people who are on the outside.
Right.
And she is engaged to a British guy. And I think that this British guy probably runs in the same circles as a Paul Joseph Watson or something like that. So I think it's almost like a God thing. I hate to, their relationship at least.
Yeah.
Seeing Nigel and Candace, and it almost seems like God. It's just, I don't want to ever say that about somebody's marriage because I just don't know. I don't want to put my hands in that. But at least her friendship.
Hence why you're a minister and you're legally allowed to marry people, and you've already said no to like 2 people asking you to marry them because you just don't want to.
Yeah. But it is, I believe that when we started covering the UK and Euro news, and in essence the world news,
right?
We had Marine Le Pen was just coming on the scene, Geert Wilders was coming on the scene, but little did we know that there were Bolsonaros out there in Brazil.
Yeah.
Little did we know that there was a Salvini. Mm-hmm. Little did we know that there was this Australian Prime Minister coming up.
Yeah.
Little did we know, and I have goosebumps all over me, and I felt it inside my spirit that there was an uprising of truth. I'm just going to call it truth because the media wants to call it right-wing populism, right-wing extremism. Steve Bannon has a name for it, calls it populism. I don't like that word. I'd love for another word to come up, and the only word that fits it is truth. Because we are the people saying, hey, listen, if you're a man and you have male genitals, then no, a female shouldn't have to wax them.
Oh, we covered that on Friday.
Okay, this is truth. We cover what?
Oh, nothing. We have a client here, but I'll just tell her we're going live.
Okay. So, anyways, this is telling her to put on the porch. So, I am in awe every single week at seeing, it's not just, we're just little resistance chicks putting Poland together with Hungary and Italy and all these different people rising up around the world. And what you see is that this is the real body of Christ. When you say, well, what's the real church? The real church is made up of individuals. When you look at the New Testament, and I'm going to go Christian on you because this is Christian, right? This is a Christ-centered movement, even though what's so amazing about this Christ-centered movement is there are homosexuals in this movement.
Yeah.
There are atheists in this movement. Knowing that whether you believe that Jesus Christ is buried, doesn't believe that Jesus Christ died and rose again, he will agree and push for Christian principles to be enacted and encourage Christians, which is why he encourages us in our show. Knowing that even if Jesus did not die and rise again, that the basic tenets of Christianity, which are laid out, Barry, in John Locke, who is a British citizen, who was a British citizen, who still is, in my opinion, people don't die, who laid out the laws of nature and nature's God. That there is an essence out there that says this is what's right and this is what's wrong. These are the laws of nature, nature's God. So what you see is, I love for people to start to embrace John Locke and say, worldwide, John Locke, right?
Yeah.
Worldwide, second treatise of government, and realizing that his whole first treatise, just to get rid of anybody saying that you're trying to set up a theocracy, takes away the divine right of kings. Literally obliterates the idea of a theocracy.
Well, but it's not even just the divine right of kings. As you listen to the first treaty, he lays down how no man has the authority over another person.
Exactly.
So whether it's a husband over a wife or a father over his son and so on and so forth, he goes all the way back to Adam. And he explains how it all got wishy-washy and how it got confused. And I think it's really, really fascinating. I was reading today, which is, what's really funny? I don't want to interrupt you here, but Leah had a little flub on Friday between Gideon and Elijah, which is actually not that difficult to do, to make the flub. But in my Hebrew devotional today, guess what the scripture reading was?
Gideon.
No, Elijah, and calling down the fire from heaven, and I could not believe it, actually. That was what I was reading. So I was reading all of that in Numbers. But within that same section and around there with talking about the law, I had been reading sections on how when do you remember the sisters? There were 5 sisters, and they said, listen, we should have an inheritance with our brothers so that our father's name isn't, cast down. So we have sort of an understanding that, yes, men are given the precedence, but when there is an absence of that, then women, right? Well, I was reading today also how if a female makes a vow to God, let's say a daughter makes a vow before God, and the father hears her make this vow and doesn't stop her, then the vow holds up. If he does stop her and say, listen, you ain't allowed to make that vow. Like, let's say she says, I'm going to be celibate for the rest of my life. She's like 13 years old. Okay, if the father hears her, then she's got to, hold up that vow. What I found was really fascinating was that, so the man kind of takes responsibility, because if he hears her, this goes for a husband, a father, or whatever. If he hears her make the vow, and he doesn't stop her, and she has to go through with it. But if he later comes and says, he doesn't want her to hold on to that vow anymore, then he's responsible. Wow. So he holds the responsibility. But in the absence of that, if there is a widow who makes a vow before God, then she makes her own decision. And so we find here that there is a natural order of things. And so when we're talking about the divine right of king or how this confusion of men rule women or whatever, no, there's a natural process of things, and in the absence of the natural process, then the woman steps up and takes her rightful spot. And so it's not that women are lesser, it's just that there's a natural process. So when we're talking about the divine right of king or somebody being able to have authority over somebody else, it's not really authority. It's just a matter of leadership. You can't have, you know, they always say too many chiefs and not enough Indians. You really can only have one chief. Okay. So I wanted to insert a biblical thing to all that.
All right. I'm going to play a piece of this because she has Paul Joseph Watson on, and I was really excited that she did because, you know, she has a voice, and even Trump talked about Paul Joseph Watson. So
he was banned from Facebook and Instagram. It actually, bizarrely, you knew you were going to get banned because somehow...
Here, I'll stop it here.
We're waiting for the volume to show up. Just be patient.
Paul Joseph Watson was recently banned from Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is just pictures.
As well, I feel a bit fish out of water right now.
We were going to get you a map to make you feel more comfortable and at home talking to me.
Yeah.
But we decided not to.
I can do it.
Right, exactly. So you recently got defended by the President of the United States. Came out.
Nice, was it?
It was a warm defense of Paul Joseph Watson when he was banned from Facebook and Instagram. It actually, bizarrely, you knew you were going to get banned because somehow the media already knew you were going to be banned, which means that Facebook is speaking to the media before they even take actions, and they banned you. Now, I will tell you, I followed you on Instagram. You kind of just post selfies.
They were all selfies, yeah.
There's not
Hardly
really
anything else.
There's no
very dangerous. My selfies, apparently.
Right.
They were good selfies as well. I'm more pissed off about that than Facebook.
Right. So there was really no political
thought.
thought.
My holiday snaps or anything now.
Yeah, exactly. There was really no political thought on your Instagram page. It was a bunch of selfies, which is what all the girls are doing on Instagram. It's why you have so many followers. Maybe a few kissy faces, and whoop, banned from Instagram.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What was the reason that they gave you?
The reason that they eventually gave was that I was banned from Facebook and by proxy Instagram, same company obviously, because I had interviewed Tommy Robinson on my YouTube channel 3 years previously.
Wow.
So it was nothing to do with anything I posted. You know, everyone's been suspended for a week on Facebook over the course of the past 10 years, but no direct violations of any of their policies. They came out in the media last week and said it was because I interviewed Tommy Robinson. So this is behaviour on a completely different platform, simply because he appeared on my channel. Now, Tommy Robinson has done interviews with BBC, Sky News, ITN. Are their Facebook pages going to be wiped out? No. So it's this Orwellian dystopian idea that simply appearing, sometimes even in a photograph. People have had Facebook posts removed for simply Tommy Robinson appearing in a photograph with them.
Wow.
The idea that Mark Zuckerberg and his employees are monitoring your off-platform behaviour, and then they can use guilt by association to designate this person as an extremist, and then by proxy, you're an extremist. So that's how it happens.
So you can catch it, pretty much, is what they're saying. So if I have a dialogue with someone, and I let's say I agree with somebody on anything, maybe Tommy Robinson says 2 + 2 = 4, and I say, you know what, Tommy Robinson, I agree with you. That means I now co-sign everything else he's ever said and done. So what they're basically saying is even conversing, having a conversation with, retweeting, I've even seen. If you retweet someone that they deem to have had an idea that they disagree with in the past, it could have been 14 years ago, you can catch it, if you will, and that gives them the excuse to ban you from their platform.
But if you're on the left, you can joke about raping children in 2012 on Twitter.
Right.
And that was just a joke, right? It's just a joke, nothing happens.
Hoping that, they weren't even joking when we had one actor who said that he hoped that Barron Trump was put in, Peter Fonda, that's right, was put into a cage and raped by pedophiles, I believe is what he said.
I don't think he even removed the tweet either.
He didn't, never remove the tweet, never
nothing.
Issued an apology, and his account was never suspended.
Nothing, no. I mean, it's absolutely unconscionable. The bigger threat for me, though, is not just deplatforming, it's algorithmic manipulation. I'll give you an example. Right now, on Google, you could search Paul Joseph Watson YouTube. What would you expect to come up as the top result?
I don't know, you how many followers on YouTube?
My YouTube channel, 1.6 million subscribers.
1.6 million subscribers.
You would expect the first result to be my YouTube channel.
Correct.
The first result is a person doing an impression of me who has about 200,000 subscribers, a video that has about 30,000 views. You don't even get to the result for my YouTube channel until the bottom of the page. Okay, so Sundar Pichai, however you say his name, testified in front of Congress. They don't manipulate the algorithm for partisan purposes. Complete and utter lie.
Of course,
he's lying in front of Congress. You've got videos on YouTube. Mark Dice is another conservative commentator on YouTube. you can put in the exact title in quotations for a video that he produced a couple of years back about Michelle Obama, 2 million views or whatever. You have to go to page 30 on the search results of YouTube to find that exact video. Videos appear before that are completely unrelated to Michelle Obama or anything to do with that.
Oh, we can talk about Google manipulation. I mean, that's the most obvious thing, and the reason for this is simple. Human beings are lazy. So when they go to Google, they want Google to spit out the fastest result. They probably don't even look past the first 4 things that it hits. The first 4 links that come up when you Google something, you are more inclined to hit those. I can't think of the last time I've hit the second page of Google, right? So Google understands this, obviously. Human beings are lazy. They want information as fast as possible. So what they're purposely doing is giving you false information about someone or distorted information about someone. If you Google me, the stuff that comes up is hideous. I do so much work for Black America talking about it.
So I'm going to stop that. You guys can look at the Candace Owens shows. Thank God Prager University is making these free for everyone.
Yeah.
But what I found really interesting in the middle of their interview was that Paul Joseph Watson, he's done a lot of videos on counterculture. And he's done a lot of things on like the conservative Christian movement, the clean movement, the non-tattooers, you know, the non-partiers. Those are the countercultures.
Yeah,
those are the rebels right now. You can't do anything more crazy than, you know, transgenderism, getting, you know, 12-year-old girls to swim naked. I mean, like, that's as rebellious. I mean, like, you can't do that. Right? Like, the rebels have gone so far as to, like, everything they do is, like, borderline illegal and criminal and wrong. Like, you know, with all the migrants coming in and craziness. So, here's the thing. Both of them are saying, like, the Generation Z, the new generation, they're very...
conservative.
They're conservative, but they like to push the buttons on it. Yeah. Like, they like to say that, you know, they're going to put on the hijabs and make fun of, you know, wearing a hijab.
Well, and they're going to support President Trump because that's the rebellious thing to do.
And putting on a MAGA hat is actually the rebellion thing to do. Like, I'm afraid to wear... I wore a Trump 2020 hat to the Claremont County Fair, and it was still a little bit like, you know, should I wear this? And I wore it during the 4th of July down, and I'm like, yeah, this is where I can wear this. Is patriotic, things like that.
Yeah.
But I want you guys to start to be rebellious to the mainstream media, rebellious to CNN, rebellious to the narrative that they are putting out for you. And I think that the irreverence of the rebellion to the mainstream media is what makes everybody so hilarious. I want you also to check out Carl Benjamin. She interviewed Sargon of Akkad as well.
They can't see there you go.
So you can check that out. So we're going to get into now Boris Johnson is Prime Minister. What does that mean? What's going to happen? I'm going to play some of his speech as well. But I wanted to start out with this. Sajid Javid, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, I don't have to say that very well. He says there should be no doubt that Britain is leaving the European Union on October 31st, and Her Majesty's Treasury is now turbocharging its preparations for a no-deal Brexit in case the bloc refuses to improve on the deal offered to Theresa May. Mr. Javid's approach contrasts starkly with that of his predecessor on Britain's ad hoc finance minister. Now, did he put all Brexiteers? I watched an interview with Rees-Mogg. Yes, he put all current people who will put forth a Brexit, but he said there are people who voted Remain in the cabinet, but they are for getting through Brexit now.
To pushing Brexit.
So that he did wipe the cabinet clean.
Yeah. He replaced 2/3 of the cabinet, which is really
with people
huge.
who will produce Brexit. Not necessarily they want it, but they will produce it.
Right.
So you have Javid here saying that his approach is different than the Phil Remainer Hammond, who favored an ultra soft Brexit in name only, or the Brino, which would have left the country subject to the EU's customs union and the single market regime. I'm very excited about Brexit because I think it's more than just, there's a spiritual component to letting go of the EU and becoming your own country again. So that is why we talk about it so much, and that's why I feel like there's even more hope after Brexit to continue to build up the UK apart from the European Union. And I really believe, and I have some good news to tell you about I think some things, once they're separated from the EU's rules and laws, I think that sanity will come back on migration, on Christian principles even, and freedom of speech, and a lot of those things will come back. And I think what we want is, I think that what a lot of people don't understand, or Boris Johnson doesn't understand, or a lot of people don't get, is that there's a surge of the gospel happening right now. And I don't think that the UK is going to be left behind in this. I know it's happening in Poland and in Hungary and in Italy and in Brazil and a lot of places. But I think that we don't have the correct term for Christian bigotry, like you do anti-Semitism or Islamophobia.
Right.
There needs to be a Christian phobia and some sort of like a word for it that it puts power behind it. Because when you, I have a video of a Christian guy here in America who was putting ads out for his veterans rehabilitation rehab program that he has that helps veterans, but it's Christian. And he'd been putting ads on Google for years, and then finally Google rejected an ad, and they said it was because the word Christian was in there.
Amazing.
So they took out the word Christian and they ran the ad in the tags, right? The tags, you can tag things. He said, I want you to run an experiment, because what they said was, we don't allow advertisement based on religion. So he said, I want you to put in the word Muslim just as a tag, and they accepted it. So that is Christian phobia right there.
And I think that that's the best thing you're going to be able to use to call it, Christian phobia.
So in 95 days, we will leave the EU. Of that, there shall be no doubt, the Chancellor wrote in an article for The Telegraph, in an apparent effort to reassure Brexit voters previously assured no less than 108 times that the United Kingdom would be out of the European Union on March 29th, but ultimately let down. Now, it's very interesting because I'm going to show you an article where Rees Moggs is this right-hand man, and he has a list of words you're not allowed to use. He's bringing back a little bit of poshness, a little bit of grammar correction, so that people don't promise things that they can't deliver on. It's very interesting. But I'm going to get to that. Yes, we want to leave with a good deal, one that abolishes the undemocratic backstop, but we should not shy away from the fact that currently the EU is refusing to make any changes to the withdrawal agreement. That is why this government is turbocharging preparations to leave with no deal, and that is why I have ordered an immediately stepping up of no deal preparations in the Treasury. In my first day of office as Chancellor, I tasked officials to urgently identify where more money needs to be invested to get Britain fully ready to leave on October 31st, deal or no deal. And next week, I will be announcing significant extra funding to do just that. Chancellor Javid indicated that some priorities had already been identified and that he would look to recruit 500 extra border force officers and launch a major nationwide communications campaign to get people and business no deal ready in time for the deadline. I think that there really is something happening here. I'm excited to see this. I mean, Boris Johnson, I believe he probably would like to stay on as prime minister, and so he knows that his head is right there on the chopping block.
Yeah.
It's literally in the guillotine.
Well, do you remember when Nigel said that he can either be Boris Johnson's best friend or his worst enemy?
Exactly.
And I think that Boris Johnson is choosing best friend.
Mm-hmm. It's also clear that an economic strategy was being prepared to not only mitigate a short-term disruption of a no deal, but to take advantage of the opportunities it would bring. Given no deal would leave Britain with few obligations to the EU and maximum freedom of action on taxation, trade, competition, state aid, and more, as well as return the EU-controlled national resources such as the fisheries.
That's huge.
So it actually could, if they catch the wave, it could ride them all the way in, okay? Like Hammond, the 49-year-old son of Pakistani migrants originally backed Remain in the 2016 referendum, but far more reluctantly than most, telling voters he would be voting Remain with a heavy heart and no enthusiasm. And it was clear now that the United Kingdom should never have joined the European Union in the first place, but that, on balance, leaving was too risky. For me, this referendum does not have to be a once-in-a-generation event. To fight for reform is not over, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see where that goes, but I'm really excited because we have Australia and Trump jumping to the front of the line. So there literally is a kind of a fight here because
it's competition.
It's a competition, but not only that, I think there's a spiritual thing. Like, you want to help your brother out. Like, hello, we're leaving the European Union. We don't like them. Right. We know they're totalitarian. We know so we're going to make this happen. And guess what? Britain and the United States even after the Revolutionary War, were giant trade partners.
Yeah.
And they kept things going. And in large part because our founding fathers and even the people back in Britain were very magnanimous, and they were level-headed, and they didn't hold, I mean, seriously, you could think that they would hold grudges, but they don't. And a lot of people in Britain, even during the Revolutionary War, didn't want to fight in the Americas. Let them have their freedom.
Exactly.
And so my point is that America and Great Britain have been we've been strongest allies since the inception of our country, even though we fought them and had a Revolutionary War. Yeah. But even that. So how much more now?
But in all honesty, though, the reason for that is that we're like brothers.
Yeah, cousins, more like.
But we are cut from the same cloth. I mean, a lot of Americans are.
Our law is the foundation of the best of British law. Unfortunately, y'all didn't adopt it as well as we did because, monarchy cool and everything, but doesn't allow for a lot of freedom. Lords and all that stuff doesn't allow for a lot of freedom. But here's the thing. Trump says British-American trade will be 5 times bigger with post-Brexit deal.
Wow.
U.S. President Donald Trump has revealed that his administration is already working on a trade deal with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, which he predicts will boost British-American trade by 3, 4, perhaps 5 times. It's going to be big. Bigly.
Huge.
The United States... Yeah, there you go. Huge. The United States is already the United Kingdom's single biggest trade and investment partner and most important security partner. But the British government has been unable to supercharge... we have a lot of these turbocharge words going around. We need supercharge. The special relationship with the U.S. I know. I wonder if they wrote the same article with the U.S. That was Javid's. He said turbocharge. Was his quote. So the special relationship with the UK with a trade deal because the European Union does not allow its member states to conduct an independent trade policy. International trade, like territorial fishing waters, agricultural policy, and much of the regulatory environmental concerning goods. And Michelle was like, what's the one thing you didn't like in his speech?
Well, because he was talking about GMOs and bringing that to the
That's one
the
thing
UK.
I do think that you guys in Europe are doing good on. You got to protect your people. You don't bring in don't petition this guy. Don't bring in GMOs. You'll never get out because guess what? You think that you're allowing some sort of capitalism and free trade, or you're just allowing the market to take care of itself. No, because
you're allowing companies to come in and kill you.
Monsanto is now owned by Bayer, and guess what? You literally will be it is the EU because Bayer just bought Monsanto. Monsanto has the GMO patent for the GM corns and things like that. And remember, Bayer guys they go all the way back to Bayer was started by the same guys, IG Farben, who gassed the Jews, who wanted the European Union. So
hang on, though, but
Monsanto,
let's point
Bayer,
out
European
why
Union.
it would be that the European Union would not want and would be the ones to not allow GMOs and yet be more than happy for them to be spread around the world. It's because they know what it is.
Exactly. They don't want it in their food.
It's like Bill Gates, or who is it, it's linked to Bayer, that won't let his kids get vaccines or something like that. Like, these people, they know. It's one of those uppy people. They all know what's going on, and so it makes total sense that the European Union is the Frankenstein reinvented of the Nazis.
Right.
And so they know exactly what's in the GMOs, and they don't want it for their people, but they want it for everybody else. So don't allow Boris Johnson to then come and bring it into your country because it's still just as deadly, regardless of capitalism.
So here's Donald Trump. He says, we are already working on a trade agreement. President Trump told members of the press at the White House, adding that he believed it would be a very substantial trade agreement. We can do, with the UK, we can do 3, 4, 5 times. We are actually impeded by the relationship with the European Union. We were very much impeded on trade, and I think we can do 3 or 4 times what we're doing. We don't do the kind of trade we could do with what some people say is Great Britain. Some people say is Great Britain. And some people remember a word that you don't hear much is the word England, which is a piece of it.
Right.
He added as something of an aside, seemingly a somewhat cryptic reference to what was the largest of Britain's home nations has been increasingly erased from public discourse. The president said he believes Boris Johnson has what it takes to be a great prime minister, adding pointedly that the British needed him for a long time. like an allusion to the Americans' low opinion of Theresa May's handling of Brexit. The president also praised Queen Elizabeth II as he admired, as much admired, and by his mom. So let's see here.
He's a good guy. He's a friend of mine. I think we're going to have a great relationship. And Boris is going to be a great prime minister. I predict he will be a great prime minister. He has what
Hey, YouTubey. Come on.
it takes. They needed him for a long time. UK needed him for a long time. And let's see what happens. Yeah, he and I will spend a lot of. We just spent a lot of time when I was with the Queen in one of the great, most beautiful couple of days that I've ever experienced. She's a tremendous woman, incredible woman. We got along very well. So Boris and I just spoke. I congratulated him, and he's all set to go. He's going to be. I think he'll do a great job. We're working already on a trade agreement. And I think it'll be a very substantial trade agreement. We can do, with the UK, we can do 3 to 4 times. We were actually impeded by their relationship with the European Union. We were very much impeded on trade, and I think we can do 3 to 4, 5 times what we're doing. We don't do the kind of trade we could do with what some people say is Great Britain, and some people remember. A word you don't hear too much is the word England, which is a piece of it. But with the UK, we could do much, much more trade, and we expect to do that, okay?
I think that he just exemplified something that we've been talking about. Lee, you're not plugged into the internet if you want to be.
Oh, okay.
That we've been talking about since our own union with you guys, and that is the fact that I grew up and the UK was just called England.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It was in our history books, it was England. We hardly, and if you called it anything, you called it Great Britain. But the United Kingdom is a phrase that we never use.
No, it's something you guys have us use, so we just use it for you.
Exactly.
We would just keep calling you England.
So I want to do something a little bit fun, just because YouTube does a good job of keeping us from getting new people to come and join us. So Adeline has sent. I'm gonna say this wrong. Are you Sunaz 79 sent him here, him or she, or he or she person here, and said, "You two are being blasted out of my Bluetooth speaker. LOL. Everyone in my house is looking at me like I'm silly." Well, I would like to talk to everyone in your house and tell them that they are going to be so glad that you are blasting us out of their Bluetooth speaker, because you cannot get content like this anywhere else on the internet but here at Resistance Chicks. So we welcome you, my friend, and hope that you stick around.
Amen. All right. Speaking of sticking around, mate, Australia joins US in seeking post-Brexit UK trade deal within weeks.
Okay, so are you really going to do the Australian accent again?
I don't know.
No.
Sooner or later is the mantra for Australia as it seeks to trade with the UK in post-Brexit world. The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, saying he wants a deal done within weeks of Britain exiting EU trade restrictions. Morrison told the Australian newspaper. He called new Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Wednesday to congratulate him and wish him every success for the big challenges he now faces ahead. He added, UK and Australia have the best of relationships, and I have no doubt that Boris and I will be able to take this to a new level in the post-Brexit era. So, in case you didn't know, the UK... Australia is it was a colony, now it's not, it's its own country. Sent all the prisoners there.
Yep.
So all the crazy wild people ended up, but a lot of them were prisoners of conscience and thought. So a lot of good people ended up.
Maia says, "Michelle, stop cringing and let Leah do her accent."
Haha, that's really funny. That's really funny.
You can do it.
We already put in place a trade working group between Australia and the UK to explore possibilities, the Prime Minister said, and that will put us in a position where, if the UK wanted to get a deal done in a period of months, maybe even weeks, well, we would be willing to move as swiftly as they were able to do. Australian farmers would be among the biggest winners from the deal, he said.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes. All right.
It was a good effort.
A for effort. La la la. All right. So you guys want to see? She had a big long speech, an hour long.
Was it an hour long?
It's 58 minutes. I think so.
Not in front of number 10. Was it? This is a different one.
Okay, well, a couple of my videos are really long, so I'm going to play snippets of what he and highlights of what he said and what he's promising.
Yes.
So
one of those things, and I don't know if your highlights get to this, so before I forget,
No.
I was greatly encouraged by the 20,000 cops, police officers in England, Great Britain, United Kingdom.
So here, actually, I'm going to play
Making
this.
the
This
streets
is a
safe.
This is a little clip on.
Again.
If push came to shove, surely that's where it's going. Brexit party MPs on a potential Boris-Nigel pact. If Boris commits to a world WTO Brexit, they could win a huge majority.
What does this mean for the Brexit party? Because some of our more fierce critics, shall we say, be saying, well, that's it, you're over and done with. Now, if Boris gets us out, what's the point of the Brexit party? Or could there be some sort of pact with the Brexit party? It's been talked about a lot, a Boris-Nigel pact. There's denials on both sides, but if push came to shove, surely that's where it's going.
I would have thought so. There are so many marginal seats in Great Britain. We've done a lot of work and identified, multiple seats where the margin of error, if we step in, then it could easily come our way. We know that the seats are either, marginal Labour or Conservative. Labour is, if you like, also not being featured in the calculus. We're focused entirely on the Conservatives, but in many Labour areas, we have just as good a chance as we do in Conservative areas, in my opinion.
And what does this mean for
All right, so I want you guys to still be excited about the Brexit party. So before
What's
I get
wrong
on
with entering a third competitive party into the mix? Why does it have to be two parties?
Well, you'd have to have a pact, and I think that when you're running people, you'd have to just almost like run one.
Mm-hmm. Because if they can, if the Tories and the Brexit party can form a coalition, they'd be unstoppable.
They would be. So here is watch Boris, and even when I was reading an article, Rees-Mogg and Boris, not to be outdone by one another, use their large vocabulary to colloquially insult their opponents. And so here's witty Boris Johnson here. And you know what's funny is you guys sent me links on Rees-Mogg on the floor and how funny he was.
It's just Mogg, there's no S.
Okay, well, I like Moggs better. Anyways, I like him with the S, so there you go. Mr. Kansas has 4 names, so it's whatever I feel like calling him.
Okay.
All right, so Rees-Mogg's Mogg. He, anyways, I don't get a lot of their humor, but it's funny to watch them laugh, so whatever. They thought it was funny.
It's about trust and who can you trust to run? How can I? And he asks about Iran, Mr. Speaker. A gentleman, who has been paid by Press TV of Iran, who repeatedly sides with the mullahs of Tehran rather than our friends in the United States over what is happening in the Persian Gulf. How incredible that we should even think of entrusting that gentleman with the stewardship of this country's security. But worse than that, by far, Mr. Speaker, this is a right honourable gentleman who is set on an economic policy together with the shadow chancellor who was sacked by Ken Livingstone for being too left-wing. Sacked for fabricating a budget.
So I want you guys to recognize something, that under Theresa May, the mood in the House was very dark and angry. And with Boris, everybody, even on the left, is just happy to have him up there because it's like, seriously, there is no right-wing party in Great Britain. They're all socialists.
True.
So it's like, to what degree or what do you going to spend your money on? I mean, Boris Johnson is already, promising this and promising that. Money-wise.
I know.
And so, I mean, I was even listening to, like, the list. Somebody was reading out the list to Rees-Mogg, and, like, that sounds like somebody's running for office with all the goodies that you're offering. Mm-hmm. And he's like, aren't you, like, a kind of a fiscal conservative? He goes, I am, but he kind of walked it back, like, hey, we got to do this to win and to keep everybody with us. So, anyways, it's I think that's why the mood is lightened there, because they don't have the stark differences in opinion. It's more on just like, hey, I like blue, hey, I like green.
Boris is going to have no trouble getting a no-deal Brexit through this House. They keep asking him, like, you know, are you going to be able to get a no deal Brexit through? Yeah, easy. Because, like you said, when it really boils down to it, I think that the left just didn't want Theresa May's deal because it was worse than any possible outcome ever.
Yeah.
He forged a budget, sacked for forging a budget. He would raise taxes on inheritance, Mr. Speaker. He would raise taxes on pensions. I am answering. I'm telling you, Mr.
Order. Mr. Lavery, you're another overexcitable denizen of the House. Calm yourself. It would be therapeutic for you to do so. There's far too much noise on both sides of the House, and I fear that the noise on the front bench is proving contagious, and I note certain backbenchers who are becoming overexcitable, and they must restrain themselves. And I know the Prime Minister will, of course, be both passionate and restrained. The Prime Minister.
But it is only with an effort that I can master my feelings here, Mr. Speaker, because the right honourable gentleman will not only put up taxes on inheritance and pensions and corporations, he would put up taxes. He would put up taxes on income to 50p and above. He would put up taxes on income. There he is, the forger of the budget of 1984, Mr. Speaker. He would put up, give him a chance, he would put up taxes not just on homes but on gardens, Mr. Speaker. And he speaks about trust in our democracy. He speaks about trust in our democracy, Mr. Speaker. And I have to say, a most extraordinary thing has just happened today. Did anybody notice what happened today? Did anybody notice the terrible metamorphosis that took place? Like the final scene of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? At last, this long-standing Eurosceptic, the right honourable gentleman, has been captured. He has been jugulated. He has been reprogrammed by his honourable friends. He has been turned now into a Remainer. He has turned Labour into the party in all the flip-flops he has performed in his tergiversating career. That is the one for which I think he will pay the highest price.
He's talking about Jeremy Corbyn because he was for
this party. This party, this government that is clearly on the side of democracy in this country. It is this party that is on the side of the people who voted so overwhelmingly in 2016. It is this party that will deliver the mandate that they gave to this Parliament, and which, by the way, this Parliament promised time and time and time again to deliver. And indeed, the right honourable gentleman and all his colleagues promised to deliver it. And the reality now is that we are the party of the people. We are the party. We are the party of the many. We are the party of the many, and they are the party of the few. We will take this country forwards. They, Mr. Speaker, will take it backwards.
Well said,
so
Boris.
It is passionate speech, by the way.
It was. So, David Baggett and Britt Bozza say that the garden tax is true, that Corbyn really does want to impose that. Worth a Look says Boris is spot on there. Corbyn has sold his soul and caved into his Remain MPs.
All right. Diane Abbott says that recruiting 10,000 new police officers would cost £300,000 compared to Boris's vow to recruit 20,000 people. A serious prime minister who means business versus the far left clown who doesn't know a clue of what she's talking about.
So how much would 10,000 police officers cost?
Well, if we recruit the 10,000 police men and women over a 4-year period, we believe it'll be about £300,000.
£300,000 for 10,000 police officers? What are you paying them?
No, I mean, sorry.
How much will they cost?
It will cost about.
So how much would
So, like, I think that basic
that's
math
difficult for me to.
So let's pretend that each police officer is paid $50,000. pounds,
Okay.
you're going to get 6.
Right.
You're going to get 6 for 300,000 pounds. So either that or they're volunteers.
Yeah.
We get, volunteers, I think.
Right.
So let's see. I was stopped in the street by a random person who said, for the first time, I think we've got a PM who is actually going to take us out of the EU. Peter Bone. Let's see here.
What do you make of Boris Johnson's start?
Brilliant. As I said in the Commons last night, for the first time in ages, I'm sleeping better at night, like millions of others now that we've got Boris Johnson in charge.
Even the people who
Hit
voted
the road
Remain are
running,
just
and
like,
we're going to come out of the EU on 31st of October. I was stopped in the street as I came in by some random person who just said, you know what, for the first time, I think we've got a Prime Minister who's actually going to take us out of the EU. And that's the feeling, I think, in the country at the moment. There's a lot of optimism and support for the Prime.
There is a lot of optimism. Let's see. Herr Juncker in the bunker would say there's going to be no change, wouldn't he? He says Marc Francois tearing into the dark May days. For the EU for 3 years have been rolling us over because we never argue back.
You're not going to have anything, do you?
Well, forgive me, Herr Juncker in the bunker would say that, wouldn't he? Look, in Parliament...
He would say, Boris Johnson, the dude, would say that too.
Well, the EU for 3 years have been rolling us over because we never really argued back. We had a chief negotiator, Ollie Robbins, who was...
So I don't know who it was, but I think it was Barnier who said that Theresa May never even said the words no deal. To threaten even. It was never on the table, even though she said it was no deal was better than a bad deal. She never, she just came in as a little kitten, hey, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Chiefly negotiating for them. We didn't stand up for ourselves. What is different is that you now have a Prime Minister who believes in leaving, who didn't vote Remain, and who is prepared to stand up robustly for the interests of the United Kingdom. That is a sea change from what the EU were used to.
But you don't have a Parliament that believes in leaving with a no deal. You also know the maths. You know you've got a by-election next Thursday. The distinct possibility, won't get as far as the 31st of October. And actually, it's not such a bad thing for Boris Johnson to have an election. You wouldn't be against an election, would you?
Well, look, for a while I was the operations officer of the Whip's office, so I know a little bit about the maths. And what's interesting in Parliament is that party positions are hardening. So Boris has been absolutely clear, we leave with no deal.
You heard Dominic Grieve?
Well, OK, but he's not the Prime Minister. Now, we've now got Jeremy Corbyn, who said today very clearly, Labour, if there was a second referendum, would vote for Remain. They're now a Remain party. Joe Swinson, the new leader of the Liberal Democrats, said incredibly the other day that she wants a second referendum, but even if we had one and we voted to leave, she wouldn't accept it. Ludicrous position. Neither Liberal nor Democrat. So, well, when you look at the maths, what you'd need to stop it is an act of Parliament. Wait a minute. The so-called Cooper Bowles-Letwin went through by one vote, but that's now expired. That was before the European elections. I believe the maths in Parliament are far more complex than many people appreciate. And there's also many Labour MPs, who never accept a Remain position. So I actually think they can't get what they want in Parliament, and I don't think they could get through a bill to stop a WTO exit.
Wow, and so that is really interesting breakdown there.
So on Facebook Live, Teresa says...
We're Facebook Live, by the way. Hi!
We haven't been Facebook Live for weeks. 20,000 is not enough for the duty of being a police officer without a gun for self-defense. That is a misnomer in the UK. Some of the police officers do actually carry weapons, but I still agree with you. It's also not enough to be dealing with a public that has run rampant because they aren't allowed to defend themselves. We've got acid attacks, we've got rapes, we've got, knife attacks. I mean, London is just a mess.
This goes into my... And remember, Boris Johnson was mayor of London. He had a handle on it, and now it's run amok. And a lot of people like to say, why... yeah, but the U.S. still has more shootings, or yeah, but this. And the same thing with, Sweden. Yeah, but the U.S., blah, blah, blah. And it just dawned on me today. How about we go at a baseline, okay? The United States homicide rates and murder rates are either, steady or declining. So we have to look at the rates, I mean, we were born out of the wild, wild west. We do have guns. We do have the Second Amendment. And so with that, you do have a little bit, different dynamic there. But you also have a dynamic in our country of gang violence, which drives up those numbers extremely high.
Exactly.
And the idea is not to take law-abiding citizens to take their weapons away, because guns are never going to go away. It's to make sure that law-abiding citizens are armed. And in my opinion, and I think that everybody would agree, we've got to find a way to deal with the gang violence, and that for us goes back to single parenthood and the austerity measures, where you are giving so much money to single moms and not to marry.
You're incentivizing single parents.
I talk to, and this goes across the board. It's the same for the UK as it is here and around the world. A friend of mine, I know a young woman who is with somebody. They got pregnant. They were living together. They had the baby. They are not getting married because, for the simple reason that they will lose the medical benefits if they're married. Now, we have to find a way, because if these people are married, most likely they're going to come off those benefits earlier anyways. And what you had in the African American community, and the same thing that happens, you get gangs when you don't have moms and dads.
Exactly.
That's when you get gangs. And so the knife crime happening, when you have all these young migrants coming in, they're not with moms and they're not with dads. You almost need to have families, but the UK can't be a family, so you have these crazy kids running around knifing people because, honestly, they don't have a mom and dad, and the gang becomes their parents. And so this little snippet here from BoJo, Boris is prioritizing law and order. 20,000 new bubbies are just the beginning. Priti Patel heading the new police oversight board, which I think is great. I know a lot of people that, what does Priti Patel know? I don't know. I know very little about her. From what I've heard her speak, she's really great. I love her. Ramping up the stop and search and longer sentences. So let's hear BoJo. Does he have the mojo?
National Policing Board, chaired by our dynamic...
To tell the criminals, no go.
Secretary will hold the police to account for meeting this target. We will also give the police greater ability to use stop and search in order to drive a reduction in the violent crime that plagues our communities. But there's no point in arresting, charging and convicting criminals if we do not give them the sentences they deserve. In fact, the number of offenders with more than 50 previous convictions who were convicted but spared jail rose from 1,299 in 2007 to 3,196 in 2018.
More than double.
Dude, if you have like one person who's had over 50 criminal offenses, like they're deported, they're in jail for life. Like, you get to a certain number, then they should like add up. Like, you can't be a professional like thief. You know what I mean? And the fact that they're actually convicted, which is huge. The fact that you have 50 criminal convictions is huge, because you guys only solve like 6% of all crime.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need to restore the public's faith in our criminal justice system by ensuring that people who repeatedly commit crimes are punished properly. And that means that those guilty of the most serious violent and sexual offences are required to serve a custodial sentence that reflects the severity of their offence.
Oh my gosh. Well said, and this is Boris. What we call like the truth movement, like the sane movement. Hello? All right, so here's another one where he's talking about we will see to it that every part of this country will see the benefits of potentially mass opportunity.
Services and infrastructure that will benefit their areas and drive local growth. And in doing so, we will see to it that every part of this country sees the benefits of the potentially massive opportunity that will come from Brexit. And I think over the last 3 years, we've tended to treat Brexit like some impending adverse weather event. But I campaigned to leave the EU because I believe it's a chance to change the direction of the UK and make us the best country in the world to live. And thank you. And we should remind ourselves that leaving the EU is a massive economic opportunity to do things we've not been allowed to do for decades, to rid ourselves of some bureaucratic red tape, to create jobs, to untangle the creativity and innovation for which Britain is famous. And, of course, we don't need to wait now to start preparing to seize the benefits of that project. So we'll begin right away to create the free ports that will generate thousands of highly skilled jobs and revitalize some of the poorest parts of our country. We'll begin right away on working to change the tax rules to provide extra incentives to invest in capital and research. We will double down on our investment in R&D. We will accelerate the talks on those new free trade deals and prepare an economic package to boost British business and lengthen this country's lead as the #1 destination in Europe for overseas investment. And at the same time, we will unite and level up across our country, as I say, with infrastructure, with better education, and with technology. And in so doing, we will make our whole nation not just an all right, okay kind of place, better than average place to live, but I don't think it sounds hyperbolical to say this, but the greatest place on earth.
So, all right, I want to pull out some things here.
Make Britain great again.
Worth a Look has, and forgive me for your comments are gone, so I'm just going to paraphrase, but I think I can. He's pretty much saying, listen, yes, Boris has come out with a good start, but we need to still be cautiously optimistic. Like, just be cautious because Boris is still establishment. And so you need to be cautious with that. So I think that that's the stance that we're going to take, is the same thing that Worth a Look is putting here in the chat. With that, let me offer this other side to that. Like you said, I think he can't say mega. Okay, he can't say make Britain great again. Okay, so so what he has to do is he's latched onto this making Britain the greatest country in the world.
So it is mega.
It is mega, but it's his way of saying it. But what were we talking about a little bit earlier? And that is kind of when greatness is thrust upon you, or you have it. We've seen this here with our representatives, like Mitch McConnell and some of those guys, where they, when given license to do the rebellious thing against,
feels good.
It does feel good, and you start. And I think that that's really been an empowering thing for Trump.
Yeah.
And from the time he decided to campaign to become president up through now, is he's found this like high in going against the establishment. And I think that it's not too early to say that, at least as of right now, Boris is getting a sense of that. And so I think that the things that he's saying and that sound really good, I think as of right now, I don't think he's quite hit the wall that he will hit. President Trump hit it. And we'll see what happens when he hits the wall of the powers that be coming against these grandiose ideas that he wants to have, getting back, putting Britain, independent again, and fighting crime, and maybe standing up against the religion that shall not be named.
Well, he's already backed down on some things. He wanted to reduce the number of immigrants from the hundreds of thousands to the tens of thousands, and he had to scrap that plan already.
Wow.
So, and he also wants to, we covering all the good and the bad. He also wants to give amnesty to everybody, the legal immigrants who are already there, and that could be devastating.
Right.
And a lot of people are very much against that.
So I think that we need to, like Worth a Look is saying, and like we're saying here, remain cautious with Boris, and cheer the things that he's doing that are correct, and poo-poo and boo the things that are not.
Yeah, Nigel Farage says, we'll fight every seat if Boris goes for May's treaty minus the backstop. Brexit party leader from Westminster here, Nigel Farage has revealed that his outfit will stand in every seat across the country if Boris Johnson clings on to Theresa May's deal with only the backstop removed. Farage has said that he is ever more certain of an election this year and has set down a marker. He told The Telegraph, if he, Boris Johnson, puts through that treaty minus the backstop, then put it to a general election, we'll fight him in every single seat. Farage has expressed his doubt the new Prime Minister will take the UK out of the EU at the end of October, pointing out last week that Theresa May promised us 108 times that she would deliver. Can we trust him to deliver? Johnson, meanwhile, has dismissed the idea of a general election, though that is still to be expected. He told reporters yesterday the British people voted in 2015, 2016, and 2017. What they want us to do is deliver their mandate and come out of the EU on October 31st. They don't want another electoral event. They don't want a referendum. They don't want a general election. They want us to deliver, and the clock is ticking. So we shall see where that ends up. There's another one. Hold my jacket. Farage ready for punch up if Johnson treats Brexit party as an enemy. Nigel Farage has said that he is ready for a punch up with the Prime Minister if Boris Johnson treats the Brexit party as an enemy. Warning he will need a political alliance in the event of a general election. Speaking to Sky News Australia, Farage said that while he is confident that Brexit will happen, he is skeptical that it will happen. Let me see if I can get you
October 31st.
On October 31st. Let's see if we can get
which, I mean,
the video.
That's not that far away. I mean, we're approaching August, September, October.
Yeah.
So you have 3 months to make this happen. And
very nice to talk to you again. Are you still
not
confident
quite sure it'll happen
after
either.
this week that Brexit will happen by October 31?
Oh, I'm confident Brexit will happen, yes. By October the 31st, I'm very sceptical indeed. I mean, look, Boris Johnson is going to win this contest. Of that, I think there's very little doubt. He said we will leave on the 31st of October. In fact, he said all the same things Theresa May said about March the 29th. 108 times she told us we're leaving on March the 29th, and of course we didn't.
Right.
Now, I think there is more sincerity about Brexit with Boris than there was with May, but I don't see, given the current makeup of Parliament, how he's going to be able to deliver it.
We've had this extraordinary day Thursday where the British Parliament has actually voted down the idea of a new leader proroguing Parliament, shutting Parliament, by 41 votes. Were you surprised at that number?
No. No, I mean, look, it's very simple. The situation in this country is the country is voted leave, the country is still leave, arguably the country is more leave than it was 3 years ago, with Parliament just simply doesn't accept the result. That's the logjam. That's the problem that we have here. So Boris faces the most enormous challenge. You know, either he says, well, I'll just break my promise and we'll kick the can down the road for a further 6 months. But if he does that, you know, he risks electoral oblivion for the Conservative Party. Or what he does is he goes for a big, bold general election. But here's the problem. Since you and I last spoke, something different has happened in British politics. A new party has come along. It's called the Brexit Party. It won the European elections heavily. It's still polling very high out there in the country. And the only way Boris could win that election is if he must come to some kind of accommodation with me and with the Brexit Party.
So this is very interesting, because if it does come to a general election, Boris Johnson has ruled out a deal with you on seats. Are you disappointed in that?
Look, you know, I've said all the way through this, if Boris wants to have a fight with me, then someone hold my jacket. That's fine. You know, I'll have a punch-up with him any day you like. But if he does that, if he chooses to see me as a political enemy, he can't win. So it's up to him.
You said you'd be back in the European...
He is Brexit man. You can't go after Brexit man. It's like, you can't
that-
go after
here's
the
the
Jolly
deal,
Green Giant. You can't go after the Brawny Man. You can't go after Nigel Farage. He is the Brexit dude. You can't do it. The people who voted Brexit
But I don't
voted
think that Boris is going to.
He's not. Yeah, I know.
I don't think he will. I think he understands that the only reason he is prime minister now is because people want Brexit and Theresa May couldn't deliver it. So if he doesn't deliver Brexit and he doesn't deliver it in a timely manner, his head is on the chopping block as well. And Nigel would step forward. So all of this gaming and fronting and stuff that we're seeing from Nigel and from different people, I really don't think that Boris, and this is just my opinion, and it's not a fact, obviously, I don't think Boris is going to, like I said at the start of the show, is going to have trouble getting a no-deal Brexit through Parliament. We're seeing the lightened mood in Parliament. I think that Nigel is just rightfully cautious, like Worth a Look is saying, because he's seen too many people fold under the pressure. So I think that Boris will do it, not because he's a good guy, not because he's an honest guy. Somebody said that in the chat, that he's an honest guy. I don't know. I don't think that he's an honest guy. I think he's more honest than some, but I don't think that's why he'll do it. I think he'll do it because he understands that if he does not, he will have had one of the shortest-lived prime ministerial careers ever.
He will. Tony Andrew here says Nigel Farage can play kingmaker.
What we haven't got in this House of Commons is a majority of MPs who actually want to leave the European Union. We're completely out of step with the public opinion, and it will be a fascinating election. But I think if we could come to an accommodation where we weren't in direct competition in all the seats with the Brexit Party, perhaps some sort of coupon arrangement. Now, I don't think Nigel Farage is a detail person. He's not going to. Brexit Party are not going to have a manifesto. He will say they're all lies anyway. So why should I bother? And he maybe have a point there. But I mean, I don't think he wants to be involved in post-Brexit Britain. He wants to achieve. He wants to get the fame of getting us out.
It would be good, and he deserves a place in the Lords at the very least for that.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I think he would certainly, knowing Nigel as I do, and having seen him in action, I'd really rather have him inside peeing out than outside peeing in.
Yeah, great.
And I think any sensible politician would want to do that. And if we don't have bring the right of centre together, we are facing Jeremy Corbyn, probably in a minority government. He'll do a deal with the SNP or the Liberal Democrats, and neither of those options will mean no Brexit. Could mean the breakup of the union itself, and it doesn't bear thinking about. So it's a real four-pointer. And at the moment where we are, I mean, Nigel Farage can play the kingmaker.
So I don't get the reference there.
Okay, you'd have him inside peeing out, then outside peeing in.
No, the kingmaker.
Oh, Nigel Farage plays kingmaker and who gets to be where and what.
Okay.
This is Brexit. He's the kingmaker.
Okay.
He's the people making people.
Britt Baza says, Michelle, the UK Parliament is in recess until in a week until September the 4th, so it's literally only 8 weeks in which Westminster can stop Brexit. There's not enough time for Parliament to stop it. For those of you that don't understand, with Article 50, Parliament did vote to leave without a deal if there was no deal. And it was supposed to be at the end of March, and that didn't happen. And so when Britt Baza says that they would have to stop Brexit, it's not a matter of Brexit being put forward and happening. It's already been voted on. All right. It's already in play. It already should have been. So they would have 8 weeks to try and stop it. So well said there.
So Nigel Farage revealed after meeting with President Trump that President Trump says they should work together. Nigel Farage reveals Donald Trump's personal message for Britain.
With the president earlier on this morning. And of course, as ever, we talked about Brexit and we talked about Boris Johnson. And I asked the president, do you have a message for the British people on this day? Sure, he said. I think Boris will make a great Prime Minister. He brings much needed energy to the job. The last 3 years have been pathetic. I want him to work with you, Nigel, to get the Brexit deal done. So that was the message that I was to convey to you. To my surprise, a few moments later, on the stage, he said this.
Nigel's someplace in this audience. Where's Nigel? Where is he? Nigel Farage. He's here someplace. I saw him. I said, what is he doing here? He's a little older than most of you. Where is he? Nigel. I'll tell you what, he got 32% of the vote from nowhere over in UK. Nigel, thank you, Nigel. I said, what's Nigel doing here? He's a little older than you folks.
A lot older.
But he did a great job, and I know he's going to work well with Boris. They're going to do some tremendous things.
So, to my total shame and embarrassment, I'd listened to the first 15 minutes or so of the president's speech, and I thought, well, big security cordon, traffic, I've got to get across town. I want to deliver this message to LBC listeners and viewers from the president, and so I kind of wasn't there when he called my name out, so I've got some apologies to give. But you can hear the message that's coming from the president. He thinks that Boris and the Brexit Party need to work together. That's his view. It's something that Boris says he doesn't want to do. And from my perspective, I find it rather difficult at the moment to trust much that is being said by the Conservative Party.
So it'll be interesting, when Trump was interviewed, he said that he's friends with Boris.
Yeah.
I think we can use that term loosely.
Loosely because Boris has said some mean things about Trump.
But at the same time, if Boris is going to want to have good relations with the U.S., I think that he might want to listen to Trump's advice for Boris and Nigel to work together. So we can just be hopeful that that happens, but also cautious and ready for if it does not.
So Boris did say, and we will do a new deal, a better deal that will maximize the opportunities of Brexit. Based on free trade and mutual support, I have every confidence that in 99 days we will have cracked it. And he says we will leave if no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, and then Farage calls for election pact with Johnson to smash Labour and deliver Brexit. So we know about this. All right. So I think we're gonna move on to the rest of the world. We spent an hour here. I think on Boris and Brexit here. The Rebel visited Tommy Robinson. So let's get an update here.
It's 7:18 p.m. I am leaving Toronto, headed to Pearson International Airport. I will get on the plane that leaves at about 8:40 p.m. It's an overnight flight, lands in Heathrow at 8:30 in the morning. From there, I will make my way to Belmarsh Prison, which is on the east side of London. My appointment to see Tommy is at 2 p.m. I expect to spend about an hour with Tommy, then leave there around 3, make my way back to Heathrow, get back to Canada tomorrow at about 8 p.m. So from leaving to returning, it's less than 24 hours. I'll just show you clips of that crazy journey in this video.
So Ezra went to go see Tommy Robinson.
And the good news is that Tommy's actually doing okay, as of right now.
Yeah.
In jail. He's getting better food. He's getting good treatment.
Was nowhere like what happened before when he literally lost 40 pounds and was
right. And was being tortured and tormented by the religion that shall not be named members that were in jail, and he had been thrown to the dogs.
Yeah,
essentially.
Exactly. They wanted to kill him.
And that's not happening. Ezra has reported. So that's really, really good news.
It's Ezra Levant for the Rebel.media. I just stepped out of a 1-hour prison visit with Tommy Robinson here at HMP Belmarsh. I'll have a longer report at prisonreports.com. I'll have several videos there, in fact, but let me give you a quick update on Twitter. First of all, Tommy is physically in good health. Unlike his stay at HMP Onley, he is not being starved. He is not being subjected to threats of violence and assault from Muslim prison gangs. The downside of that is he's being kept in extreme isolation. He has literally not seen another prisoner in his entire time here. Now, that's a good thing when it comes to his safety. Of course, it means that there's the risk of the psychological damage of being essentially in solitary confinement for the 9-month sentence. And this is on top of the solitary confinement that he already served. However, that means he's not under immediate threat. And of course, he was very glad to receive visitors from myself, and actually 2 other friends of Tommy's were with him today. He's had 1 visit from Tommy's wife and mom, and that's not enough visiting time for a guy in isolation. In 12 days, we were only his 2nd group of visitors. Tommy says he's only received 1 batch of emails as well, that the police are going through them all and have been very slow at sending them over. I myself have written him 2 emails, and he has not received those yet.
Wow.
The mainstream media, as you can imagine, is packed full of lies about him. The fake news that Tommy was assaulted in a shower by another prisoner doesn't even make any sense when you realize that he literally has not seen another prisoner in his time here. He has a suite of cells to himself, including showers, exercise room, and things of that sort. He says, interestingly, he can holler up to one of 2 other prisoners in the same isolation unit, one of whom is Julian Assange. And he says they've had an interesting conversation. I'll give you more details about the many things that Tommy told me, but my immediate report is that Tommy is in satisfactory health, both physically and psychologically. There are things that concern me, but they are not acute. I will return because I have the feeling that things will go sideways if the prison governor thinks that people are stopping to watch. But for now, the state of Tommy's imprisonment in HMP Belmarsh is satisfactory. To see more about Tommy's state of affairs and to chip into the crowdfunding of my cost for the travel, please visit prisonreports.com.
Well done, Ezra. Well done indeed. Okay.
So he did confirm there then that he is having conversations with Julian Assange. Yelling. Why they would put them together like that, I don't know, but I'm very excited about this. And I'm hoping that some left-wingers might come over to our cause, because obviously Tommy is on Julian's side. And I think that that's really interesting, because when it comes to the left and the right are like, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with you. And the right are like, I'll deal with anybody, right? And Tommy realizes that what Julian Assange is in prison for is wrong. And so Tommy's on Julian's side. And I think that that's really important to note there. Let's see. So I want to move on to some other news. The EU is dragging Hungary into Eurocourt over anti-illegal migration Stop Soros laws. The European Commission has begun a process that will see the Hungarian government taken to the Court of Justice of the European Union over its tough laws against illegal immigration. The Stop Soros law, a reference to pro-migration billionaire plutocrat George Soros, was put forth last year and is aimed at punishing NGOs and other non-government actors who engage in facilitating illegal immigration. The European Commission, an unelected body, blah, 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 is putting Viktor Orban's government there on the line. They've already censured them in many ways. And this is what the Hungarian people want. So we'll see where this ends up.
Well, I think this is what happens, the dangers of being able to be taken to court before a united world group. Yeah. Okay. I mean, what can happen to Hungary? I mean, I think that the worst, they can impose fines. They could kick them out of the European Union.
They're not going to do that. That's too much control.
But at the same time, what's scary is that they are trying to put together a European Union army. Yeah. And in that case, they could literally charge Hungary. So they could send troops in.
Viktor Orban was at a cultural festival in Romania. The Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said the EU's Executive Commission needs to allow a Council of EU Interior Ministers to decide the migration issues. Orban also said it was time to return to the ideal of a competitive European economy. Orban says we need jobs and to implement tax cuts everywhere. He also said Hungary would likely need 2 more stimulus measures to protect its economy. So I think that that's where it's really tricky. I'd love for Hungary to be its own country and to be strong like it used to be, Hungary and Poland. But when you become dependent, and they are dependent upon the EU, but it's a tricky situation because in being dependent, then asking for money versus, and it's just tricky because there needs to be a stimulus there, and I'm praying for them. I'm praying for them to get some God help there, right? Okay, so this was very interesting. In Cyprus, there were 12 Israelis Jewish people accused of raping someone.
Okay.
And it was a big deal because, oh my gosh, these Israelis did this thing.
Sure.
They're set free. She lied. And so it's become an international kind of spectacle here. And
so she tried to do kind of a Jussie Smollett.
I thought it was 12. It was 7. Sorry, forgive me. Exactly.
We keep seeing this because they don't have, and this is what the globalists and the left and the evil people do. When they don't have anybody on there, they don't have anybody actually doing the bad things that they keep touting. They make them up.
This is what we call a hate hoax.
Yeah.
Because they were Israelis. They're Jewish. It was 7. Forgive me. 7 Israeli tourists held in Cyprus are to be released after a British teenager who accused them of gang rape was arrested on suspicion of making a false allegation. I'm glad that she's arrested. We need to arrest everybody who makes false allegations.
Oh, absolutely.
And they need to go to jail. And I think that they need to go to jail for the same tenure and term that the other people would have gone for.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that to somebody's life. Because you're literally saying, I want you to go to jail for a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm. So you need to serve that sentence. We need to really put especially in America, like that, with Jussie Smollett, you need to go to jail. You cannot continue. We have Andy Ngo, who put together, he covers Antifa and stuff. He has hate hoax lists that boggle my mind. And all those people should be in jail. All of them. And those are not victimless crimes. You're trying to put people in jail.
Exactly.
You need to go to jail. All I can say now is that the 7 Israelis will be released from custody within the day, and that the British woman was arrested earlier today. She is facing charges of giving a false statement over an imaginary offense. I like how they called that. Initially, the 19-year-old woman had alleged that 12 Israelis gang raped her at the hotel where she was staying in the popular Ayat Napa resort on July 17th. The young Israeli tourists were remanded in custody the next week, but hours before their but hours before their second appearance before court, 5 of them were released and sent home. The remaining 7 had their remand order renewed for another 6 days. None have been charged. And the complainant
How do they find out when
changed her
someone
version
lies?
and
based
based on that, the investigator released the other 7.
Wow.
So,
it's hard to keep your story straight when you've made it up.
It is very hard to keep it straight. Let's see. This, I really do not like covering her. I know that Horatio thinks that she's a, she does not like, Greta.
Horatio does not, right?
Horatio does not. I was trying to come up with a nice way to say it, but he just thinks that she's a pile of poo. So, and in her, unfortunately, it's what her parents have done to her. She's supposedly like autistic.
They're calling him the climate kid. Or calling her. Oops, that wasn't a that was a Freudian slip, I suppose. They're calling this young lady the climate kid who's coming out and making the awfulness of climate change known to the world.
So she's going to go speak, supposedly been invited to speak to the French parliament. And a lot of the French parliament is not happy to have this Swedish kid come and lecture them, right? So a French philosopher labels climate kid Greta a Swedish cyborg. French philosopher and writer Michael Onfray slammed Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, who is obviously not one of our own, following her recent visit to the French parliament. Oh, she did visit, sorry. Labeling her a cyborg. The philosopher wrote an article about the Swedish teen on his website entitled Greta Science, in which he voraciously attacked Thunberg. The girl has a cyborg face that ignores emotion, no smile, no laugh, no astonishment, no amazement, no pain, no joy. And that's absolutely true.
I know, I've seen her
It's
speak.
really creepy.
It is.
It is not in your...
Could you imagine our show without facial expressions of emotion?
It's like it makes me think of these silicone dolls that announce the end of the human and advent of the post-human. It has the face, the age, the sex, the body of a cyborg of the third millennium. Its envelope is neutral. It is unfortunately what mankind is heading to. What soul lives in this body without flesh? It's
She does
hard
look
to
creepy.
know. Yeah. Onfray has also been highly critical of the students who follow Thunberg, and I should say, it's not that she is this way. I believe that she's been brainwashed. Her message is the pile of poop, by the way, and it's been force fed her by her parents.
Sure.
I feel sorry for her. I think that she's abused, and I do believe that it's called a spoiled brat. And when you spoil a child, it is abuse. It is abuse.
I agree with that.
Onfray has been highly critical of the students who follow Thunberg and her weekly protests, calling them a flock of sheep of this generation who believes himself free by bleeding the catechism that adults teach them. Reacting to Thunberg, saying she would stop going to school for a year to continue her climate change activism, Onfray said, "Indeed, why learn things at school when you already know everything about everything?" Onfray also raised his ire against the politicians and others who fawn around this young Swede, saying that the worst thing is adults who enjoy being humiliated by one of their creatures. The philosopher is not the only one in France to speak critically of Thunberg's visit. Several politicians from the Conservative, Republicans, and Marine Le Pen's national rally slammed the invite to fight climate change intellectually. We do not need the apocalyptic gurus. But
I don't think that's spelled right.
It is. Yeah, apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic, yeah.
Apocalyptic gurus, but scientific progress and national political courage. Even people who believe in climate change are like, hello, we don't need this teen coming to lecture us. So there you have that. Remember Lauren Southern's Borderless documentary.
And the drama surrounding it, but we'll leave that to the side.
The documentary was a fair assessment, and they did a good job. I have to say that they did a good job. But what she put together was these NGOs and the people smugglers. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of money changing hands.
Right.
So there's a Libyan Coast Guard, which we, as Barack Obama, we went in and destroyed Libya. It's a failed state. They're literally selling slaves on the block as we speak.
Unbelievable.
Thanks to Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And Hillary Clinton. But a Libyan Coast Guard claims he saw contacts between smugglers and the NGOs. That's like, hello, like, newsflash, could have told you that, and I'm not even there, right? A commander in the Libyan Coast Guard has claimed to have seen the direct contact between migrant rescue NGO worker working off of the Libyan coast and the people smugglers. A sailor who commands one of the 3 patrol boats donated to Libya by the Italian government said that he has seen direct evidence of smugglers. So the Italian government is saying, hey, help me to patrol. Here's some boats. And he's like, hello, there's these people smugglers, and they're hooking up with these NGOs, and they're using the social media platforms. I've personally seen many contacts on Facebook or on Twitter between the NGOs and the smugglers, and I've seen many contacts between them. Describing his own interaction with the migrant rescue NGOs, Mustafa, Lion King's out, by the way. Mustafa. I know, but it just sounded like it. It just sounded like it. I just remember it. I speak with the NGOs. I ask them not to approach to avoid putting migrants' lives at risk, but sometimes they're not listening. They are not listening. They just want to take the migrants. Money, money, money. And this creates a dangerous... These boats are getting money. The smugglers are taking money from the people. Yeah. The smugglers take the cut, and then they give money to the NGO boats, and it's how it's all about money.
And then these people who actually were promised that they would be able to go into Europe,
right,
end up in like the worst straits ever, and they didn't know that was going to happen to them. It's actually pretty. It's sad all around, really, frankly. And Lauren Southern's Borderless exposes that and does a great job of that.
So speaking of the migrants and how like the speech is being curtailed, this documentary by independent filmmaker Michael Hansen, he's a Danish filmmaker, about mass migration and Islam in Europe, entitled Killing Europe, has been removed from Amazon from its Prime Video service. Amazon cited quality assurance concerns, despite the fact the documentary had been hosted on the platform since 2017. We're seeing that, like with Paul Joseph Watson. People are going back and saying, you know what? We don't like where this is headed. We see populism rising. We don't want people to know what's going on. We're going to remove it from Amazon Prime, even though obviously a lot of people wanted to watch it. You know the junk that's on Amazon Prime? You know, somehow it has like 4 or 5 stars, and you watch it and you're like, nobody voted on this. This was Chinese bots, because this was the most horrible movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, that happens all the time. It's awful.
I hate,
but I do want to tell you what you can watch on Amazon Prime and what you should be watching is Little House on the Prairie. And I'm going to keep plugging that for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that it makes you feel good. And it will make you a better person.
So after Breitbart unfortunately covered the new documentary, Killing Free Speech, then Killing Europe was taken off. In its message to Hansen, Amazon said his previous documentary, which is still available on YouTube, does not meet customer content quality expectations. You know what? I've seen a lot of stuff on Amazon Prime, and it is like there's no quality. You give it a 0. So let's see. Let's give us a...
Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman. Sighed the vicious snake. Now she clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in, by now you might have died. She stroked his pretty skin, and then she kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bit me, heavens why. You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go. And you can still watch it on YouTube. You can still watch it. Migrants brutally beaten by mob, and this is very interesting because the mob actually comes after the migrants who molest underage girls, and so people are rising up. So I wonder who gets punished here. A pair of Moldovan migrants were viciously beaten by a mob at a French outdoor swimming pool after molesting 2 underage girls. The incident occurred around 4 p.m. over the weekend in the French commune of Dreville.
Didn't we just cover a story like this last week?
Yeah, they're always, it's summertime, people are swimming, and the migrants are molesting people.
I'm telling you, if you live in Europe, you're not allowed to go swimming. Michelle said so. Just don't do it. It's not safe.
Well, and here's the thing. Profiling, you stay your distance away from other people. I stay my distance.
Go with someone, male.
Assaulting 12 and 15-year-old girls, and the men's in their 30s. Immediately after the assault, one of the girls screamed, alerting other bathers who attempted to attack the 2 men. The father of the young girls also joined in and said to have beaten them both. One of the migrants managed to escape the crowd and the violence and hid, while the other had to be rescued by the pool security. One of them has a head injury, a broken nose, and a wrist. and the other has cracked ribs and a swollen face.
Are you serious?
Abdil Amari, the director of Leisure Center where the attack occurred, said it was the first time this incident has happened in the pool.
So a mob of people went and attacked these people, and they ended up with a broken nose and cracked ribs, and they had to be... Okay, well...
This comes after a gang of 50 or so French youths believed to be of North African origin caused chaos we talked about last week at a swimming pool in the German border town of Caen. That same weekend, several other incidents occurred in French pools, including in Indreville, where 3 men in their 20s were said to have sexually assaulted 2 teenage girls while drunk. Earlier this year in Italy, a migrant from Nigeria was also almost lynched by a crowd in Naples after attempting to rape a woman after dragging her into an alley near the city's main train station. So people are like,
they're fed up.
They're fed up. I mean, they're fed up. They're fed up. Say it again, they're fed up.
Well, I'm trying to keep us on YouTube. I'm just saying, let's leave that up for the crowd to decide as to whether it's right or wrong.
Defense, self-defense,
yeah.
And defending yourself and someone else. You need to defend.
If somebody is being attacked,
you need to defend them.
And the crowd goes in to stop the attack.
Defend them best that you can.
Yeah.
Defend them. And obviously this is defense. Defense only. So this is very interesting. Listen to Anter is a Muslim immigrant, I believe in Finland, and he explains why the left needs migrants to stay as victims.
You say, I am a Finn, but you're a refugee here. And the mainstream media, the left, all the people who embrace refugees, who say, more welcome, we must learn, we must help educate them, we must integrate. And you're, to me, then a perfect example of someone who is all those things, integrated, feels the country is the country, but they won't let you speak.
No, I've shouted years, I'm a leftist, I'm a liberal, I'm a secular, I'm a refugee. I got integrated in Finland, I'm highly educated.
And that's what they don't like.
He's obviously highly educated because if he's in Finland, he's obviously can speak English, Finnish, and his native language.
It's amazing.
No, they do not like it because they want victims, they want teddy bears, they want something to signal their own virtue.
Yeah.
Once a refugee or an immigrant learns Finnish and speaks on behalf of himself, then you might realize that he has different ideas than you. So what we've seen, the people in Finland who shout their tolerance, like, oh, I'm so tolerant, mostly they tolerate people because of they're so different. Once you become like them, they will not tolerate you.
Isn't that very interesting?
So they only tolerate difference.
They tolerate difference, but they can't tolerate anything that's approximation.
No.
Anything that is close to them.
No, and because I criticize the attitudes, like I've criticized positive racism a lot, like how they treat refugees and immigrants like children. I get that a lot. Like they treat me like a kid, not like a real adult.
Yes.
And that really
like you might not know what's best for you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. And they say this all the time. Oh, you're doing this and that. You're empowering those and these. And they're gonna say from this interview also that I'm empowering some kind of a right-wing racist.
Oh, you're fueling my agenda, my Nazi agenda.
And which is weird because, come on, if the mainstream media would let me talk, I wouldn't perhaps be here. I wouldn't, you wouldn't be the only person really actually interested in my cause. And that's the problem, because when the mainstream media doesn't actually allow integrated refugees to talk about their issues, of course we will talk with people who are actually interested in it, like you.
So that was the snippet there I wanted you to hear. Was that we call positive racism. And we see that a lot, but left worldwide. What they accuse you of is what you're guilty of. When I see an immigrant or I see an African or I see somebody coming over, I expect you to be able to be a good person.
Yeah.
I expect you to work hard. I expect you to be kind. I expect you not to to steal and to rape. I expect you to not need other people to put you through life.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is what we call equality.
Yeah.
But the leftists look at these Africans coming over, look at the Muslims coming over, and they treat them like children. They keep them in these boxes, but that's why the crime continues, because you're not holding them to the same accountability that you would a native-born person or a white person. And the left is the greatest of all racists. And what I see on the right is it's like, hey, listen, if you're going to come into the country and you're going to just, you know, you're going to embrace the country, wherever country you're in. You're going to say, I embrace your values, okay? I want to be like you. I came here because I want to embrace and be like you and be like, and embrace your values. And then people don't have a problem. There would be absolutely no problem with any migration if they came in and they worked hard and they, you know.
But history proves that. I mean, at least here in the United States, it proves that.
Yeah, because
that's how everybody.
Well, and people
really
don't understand that anti-Catholicism, it was as bad as racism, you know, because people were very. And rightfully so, leery of Catholics. And so the Irish came over, and the reason I believe that the Irish were treated like dirt was because they were Catholics, and so people were very leery, like, hey, I don't want you to really to be in power, because we know what happens when Catholics get in power. No offense to the Catholics, but like when we know what happens when you have the church and the state combined. And America was like, not going to happen. So we are partly of Irish origin with my grandma, Dyer, and she can attest to the fact that back through history, Irish Catholics were treated badly, but not anymore. Because, oh my gosh, hey, look, Catholics aren't so bad. It was really actually the basis of the government that was bad, not Catholicism that was bad. It was the fact that Catholicism was combined with the government that made it bad, and people learn that. Now
because power corrupts.
And it's taken even time. You know, a lot of Catholics were leery of Protestants. And what we have in America right now, especially in the past 20 or 30 years, we have a unifying, we're Christians, right? Whether you're Catholic, whether you're Protestant, we're Christians. Every once in a while, we'll let a Mormon come in. But, you know, Catholics and Protestants are Christians. That was my joke of the day. Ba-boom ching. Not really a joke. All right, so I think I'm going to play a little bit of this beginning one with Rees Moggs because he had people laughing.
He did.
Suggestion that I should replace Nanny with the staff in the leader's office. I think they might be a bit bemused if 6 children trotted in with me and expected to be looked after by
He's saying get rid of the nanny for the kids.
I won't go down that route.
But see, there to the left, that lady was just laughing. They're all laughing on both sides. Back to what we were talking about earlier, the mood in the house has lifted.
Yeah. Well, because Rees Moggs and Boris are both hilarious. Even if you don't agree with them, they're funny.
It is available online for free. Now, I understand that opposition members view themselves as modern and cutting edge and thrusting, and that therefore going online may not be too problematic for them. Even I can do it occasionally myself. And if they don't want to do that,
being tech savvy.
The Erskine May proper edition is available for £400 and may prove a good investment. The issue about the business that's being announced, it's being announced for a week. That has been standard practice for some time. I know historically it wasn't, but Mr. Speaker, you said yourself that convention had to evolve, and this is one of those conventions that has evolved, and now we merely have it for 1 week. The Honourable Lady also asked about the conference recess. The Honourable Lady knows that recesses are a matter for this House to determine, and no doubt through the usual channels a proposal will be made, though I do imagine that it will be convenient for members to be able to attend their own party conferences. That has been what has happened previously, and it tends to be to everybody's benefit. And I'm glad to see I see the Chief Whip for the Labour Party nodding, or at least appearing to nod at that. And so I think that there may be something forthcoming in due course. The issue of prorogation is absolutely marvellous, because the Honourable Lady asked for a new session and said when would this session end, and then asked me to promise we wouldn't prorogue. Well, we can't have both, because we can't get to a new session without proroguing. Though my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, has said he views prorogation as an archaic mechanism and does not wish to see archaic mechanisms used, as I'm bound... As I am now bound by collective responsibility, that is now also my view.
So pause that really quickly, because sometimes for those of you that are from not the UK.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He's using words that even I have to look up. So, prorogue means to discontinue a session of a parliament or other legislative assembly without dissolving it. When he was talking about these other MPs getting the Erskine May, that's a compilation of parliamentary rules and how things should be conducted and so on and so forth. So there are inside jokes that we're just not going to get.
We're not getting.
So carry on.
Well, yeah, exactly.
In regards to the Lord's message in relation to joint committee, that's obviously going to be looked into. We always wish to treat the other place with respect. I think that is an important way that we operate, and that will be taken care of in due course. And on the written ministerial statements, I mean, this really is your, I was going to use a word beginning with D and ending in M, with an ED on the end if you do, and the same if you don't. But Mr. Speaker might rule me out if I do say that, which I don't want to do on my first appearance at this dispatch box. The Parliament wants to know what's going on, and there is limited time for debates. Mr. Speaker, earlier this week gave me an urgent question on Batten disease. We know that the system for getting statements and urgent questions answered works, and therefore if there are issues that people wish to raise from the 70 written ministerial statements, there are mechanisms which the Honourable Lady is
It's not
extremely
bathroom
well aware
disease.
of.
It's I'm sorry. But just watching the subtitles that are just the computer's best way of I'm sorry.
It did say bathroom disease.
It did say bathroom disease.
All right, so you can watch it if you want to be in stitches and get a little British humor in there. Britt Bozza keeps sending me these links, and it's really important. Worldwide, I think that the Hong Kong movement is not over. It's very much like the Yellow Vest movement. And they're trying to seize upon this to get their autonomy away from China. So we're going to see where this goes, because they've been waiting for a wave and a movement to get their autonomy, to get their freedom back from China.
Yeah.
Because remember, they were under British rule for so long, they know what freedom is. And to be under Chinese rule, they're kind of this quasi-state, where they have way more freedom than mainland China, but China is they're still part of China. So that thousands march in Hong Kong again.
Wow. It's incredible.
That way more than the Yellow Vest movement by far. I mean, like, I'd say a third of the city's marching.
Wow. And if you're on social media and you see Free Hong Kong, I mean, this movement is so huge, and it will be interesting to see how it turns out if they end up with the revolution that they want.
It's like if you and I, like, these people are Western in their mindset, and by Western I just mean freedom and democracy based.
Well, you saw some UK flags. Here's two USA flags.
They have USA flags. I get goosebumps. This is the Asian uprising, you could say, happening. This populist movement. I have goosebumps all over me. Not to be left out. The Asians, right?
Yeah.
You've got Bolsonaro in South America. You've got Salvini in Italy. You've got the Hungarians.
But what
Eastern
is it
Europe.
ultimately? It's a move of God.
It's a move of God.
And that's why you're seeing it everywhere.
Especially in Hong Kong. These are Christians mostly. And people, well, I wouldn't say they're mostly Christians, but remember, they did sing hymns and make the hymn their battle cry.
Yeah.
And if a hymn is your battle cry, you know you're on the right track.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to have some bad actors in there, but by and large, these have been extremely.
You are more inclined to hit those. I think in the last time I wrote a second page of Google, right?
Hang on, Candace is
Google
playing.
understands this obviously human.
Let's try this again.
But they're fighting for the same thing that everybody else is fighting for, the government to take a step out of their lives.
I think that's a really good
and
point.
And that's what we're all fighting.
Exactly.
Some to a greater extent than the rest of us.
Yeah. They were condemning an attack by armed masked men. Let's see, in the Yongwei metro station.
Violent day of street clashes has finally come to an end. The protesters were here in their thousands, tens of thousands, at the height and have now finally been pushed by riot police, sort of block by block towards the train station, and they've left. And behind me, I'm sure you can see that the riot police too are now sitting down resting after having a full day of battles with
I'm going to take that back.
hardline protesters.
There's some
throwing
hardline protesters
bricks and other
there.
projectiles at them. They've responded by firing rubber bullets, tear gas, pepper spray, and it just shows yet again that these protests are escalating in terms of the level of violence. You know, a few weeks ago we saw the odd projectile maybe being thrown back at the police, but today there were a lot. You know, protesters came here geared up for battle, really. Some had their homemade shields, their own gas masks, their own helmets. They knew there was going to be a big fight, and there's no sign of an end to this. We're now in the second month of this political crisis. The protesters have expanded what they're calling for. They initially were demanding that this bill be withdrawn, this unpopular bill allowing for people to be extradited to mainland Chinese courts controlled by the Communist Party. That bill is now effectively politically dead. Those mass street rallies featuring hundreds of thousands of people killed it. And yet, emboldened now, bolstered by that victory, if you like, they've decided to accelerate, and they're going in harder, attacking the authorities. They believe the peaceful path doesn't work now, and for many they think this is it. This is the fight for Hong Kong that had to come, and they're hoping somehow or other this will lead to genuine democratic elections here. But there's no sign that the government in Hong Kong, and especially in Beijing, will be prepared to grant them that. In fact, potentially it could go the other way. Imagine the Politburo Standing Committee in Beijing watching this rebellious city where tens of thousands of people are prepared to attend what is essentially an illegal gathering. The nuclear option.
It's an illegal gathering because they don't have the right to gather.
Yeah.
But before God, the rights of you know, nature, and they have every right to gather. So what do you do when your city or whatever is part of, you know, something bigger, a bigger communist party? What do you do when you're stuck and your weapons have been removed? You know, you have no recourse. Is it that surprising to see them turn to a more aggressive approach than just assembling?
In all of the protests that I've seen around the world, I think that
this is the most peaceful I've seen.
Well, the Hong Kong people have the only right to throw off their government by means that are beyond elections because they don't have them.
Exactly.
So
what do they do? If they don't have the elections, what are you supposed to do?
So as John Locke or as our declaration says, it's not for any light or transient means that you throw off said government. Our government has been encouraging overthrow of governments in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Our government has encouraged the overthrow of the government of Iran. Our government has encouraged the overthrow of the government in Syria.
Yep.
By violent means, and we have funded, especially in Syria and in Venezuela, people to do these things. Now,
Adeline says the Chinese invented gunpowder. I think they know how to make bombs.
I think that for Hong Kong, they are the only ones who have a legitimate reason. In France, you can vote your people out. Like you do have, unfortunately or fortunately, you do have a more democratic. You can vote. I mean, if you wanted to, Marine Le Pen could be your prime minister, your president. Okay.
Aside from election fraud, but I think that was only a very minor play in that election.
But they don't have democratic elections in Hong Kong. So Lord, we just lift up Hong Kong. Pray that you give them wisdom on how to get their freedom. And I pray that you allow the Christians to take the reins of this, because obviously if they get too violent, then China will come in and just shut them all down. Okay, so I have good news. In the UK. I don't know if you guys saw the video we played one time where a man was arrested. On the videos in this, but a man was arrested for preaching the gospel. He was a black man. And the Scotland Yard has agreed to pay a Christian preacher £2,500 for wrongful arrest and humiliating treatment after the Metropolitan Police detained him last February, stripped him of his Bible, and handcuffed him and drove him several miles away, where they left him. The 64-year-old Pentecostal Christian, Oluwole Islami said he welcomed the decision as a victory for freedom of speech. Mr.
Ilsanmi.
That's good. Moved to the United Kingdom from Nigeria in 2010 as a Protestant missionary. 2 officers approached the former dentist last February as he was preaching outside the Southgate tube station in North London. And I think that this is the video. It's really hard for me to watch when Christians are persecuted, especially in Britain. So don't take my Bible away. You should have thought of that before you were racist.
The black man being racist.
Yeah.
I can be arrested if you want. Don't put your hands in my face. I can be arrested if you want. Hands in my face. What's your face? You put your hands in my face. You better even make your life with the Lord Jesus Christ. What are you doing? I am preaching. You're preaching. I'm going to require you to go away. You can never. Okay, then I will arrest you for a breach of peace. Plain and simple. What breach of peace is what you're doing at the moment. You're causing problems, you're disturbing people's days, and you're breaching their peace. Okay, so for that to be dealt with, if you won't go away voluntarily, we will have to arrest you. I will not go away because I need to tell them the truth. Because Jesus is the only way, the truth. Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life. I appreciate that. Nobody. But nobody wants to listen to that. They want you to go away.
Nobody wants to listen to that. They want you to go away.
You will listen when you are dead. You will listen. Take me. No.
That can be taken the wrong way.
What?
You'll listen when you're dead.
Oh.
It can be taken the wrong way. But like he meant when you.
We all know what he meant.
When you go meet God.
No, we're not taking it away.
Before that, sir.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Whatever you like, you can even do. Whatever you like. Where do you?
It's had almost 3 million views, by the way, on Twitter, and so this was a wrongful arrest. So this video that went viral, almost 3 million views of the arrest, that has now been viewed by 10 million, I guess, in other places, stirred up a public outcry, and the advocacy group Christian Concern took up the man's case, which eventually led to the decision to compensate the man for damages. In their police report, the arresting officer said that they had arrested Mr.
Ilsanmi
to prevent the breach of peace, yet video footage of the event shows no hostile or aggressive conduct by this man. In the verbal exchange recorded in a 2-minute video, one of the officers tells them, "We are going to require you to go away or I will arrest you for breach of peace." And then he says, "You're causing problems." The video also shows a police officer taking away the Bible away. And when the preacher asks officers not to take his Bible, one of the officers says, "You should have thought of that before being racist." Ilsanmi admits that he described Islam as an aberration, seemingly to trigger the trigger for the racism allegation, but insists that he was not denigrating Muslims, but merely expressing his perspective as a Christian. It's really hard for a black man to be called a racist in today's day and age, but it's really easy.
But hang on, though, because go back up. Now, what did he say? It says, and if this is a correct quote, it says he described Islam as being an aberration,
not Muslims.
Now, but even if it was Muslims, they aren't a race. It's a religion. It's a religion. So it's impossible for him to be racist if he is saying your religion is wrong, my religion is right. Every religion has the right to say that.
On Sunday, he told the Daily Mail, "I believe God loves everyone, including Muslims, but I have the right to say that I don't agree with Islam. We are living in a Christian country, after all.
Wow.
I was upset when they took my Bible away. They just threw it in the police car. They would never have done that if it had been the Quran. Whatever happened to freedom of speech?" The video was taken by Ambrosine Chitrit, who said she was passing when she saw Mr. Ilsanmi debating with a Muslim man. The preacher was fearless. If I hadn't started filming, he would have been attacked.
Wow.
He was not breaching the peace, and in no way had he been Islamophobic. I would have been the first person to have said something if he had been. In early March, the Metropolitan Police directed its Professional Standards Unit to begin a review of the arrest in the face of extensive criticism. According to the Oslo-based Sergeant Dave Turtle, this sort of heavy-handed approach to Christians is too familiar, adding that police officers need better training to understand the rights of street preachers. Turtle said, called for a fundamental review of police. Now, here's the thing. They overlook the sex gangs, but they arrest and get real hardline with Christian preachers. It's demonic.
It is.
It's demonic.
And I think we're going to see a big change in that once they leave the European Union.
Observers have noted a strange discordance in that Muslims seem to be able to preach in London without being harassed by police, whereas Christians are often treated hostilely. The $2,500 indemnification was awarded as compensation for wrongful arrest, and I want to make that clear. He was wrongfully arrested, and I'm so glad that they have decided that, because it's not about the money.
Right. Oh,
I don't want the money. I want you to tell me that you wrongfully arrested me, and then I want you to make sure that you don't do it again
to
and
others.
you train all the officers to allow Christians to preach. And false imprisonment, aggravated damages for exceptional harm, and humiliating and distressing treatment. And
so they might as well get rid of the entire Church of England.
Yeah, exactly.
Either there is the Church of England or there is not. Either your nation is a Christian nation or it is not. It is that simple. And if it is a Christian nation, then above all else, Christian preachers should be the ones that are protected.
Yeah, so I'm going to end on this. I know that was my positive note, but I really wanted to talk about this because it really hit home for me. Because I really want to get this out there, because I want you guys to know what's happening right now worldwide. And this is America, but this Jesuit magazine is not, in my opinion, American. A lot of the Jesuits are based in South America, and this Pope here is from South America, and he is of the Jesuit denomination, or whatever you want to call it, the Jesuit order of the Catholic Church, who have gone completely communist. And I've known this. That is why the Pope here,
not just communist, but they're big globalists
in communism. And so the Jesuit flagship publication, and oh my gosh, what I just do went down to the bottom here. The Jesuit publication in the United States, America Magazine, has published an article defending Marxism. And I can't even, how do I even, say that with a straight face? How do I even read that as a sentence?
How does anybody defend Marxism except for Marxists?
We see that happening, Teen Vogue says, Karl Marx wasn't that bad, and comparing the murderous atheist ideology to Christianity. The Catholic case for communism, writer Dean Detloff says that the militant atheism of Marxist politics is understandable because Christianity has so often been a force allied with the ruling powers that exploit the poor. As a number of prospective presidential candidates from the Democrat Party are openly donning the mantle of socialism, America took the issue one step further, the American magazine, suggesting that the negative reaction to Bernie Sanders' inspiring 2016 primary bid and the electoral success of AOC and Rashida Tlaib represents a revival of socialist hysteria. Detloff showcases Marxist priests like Herbert McCabe, O.P. Ernesto, and Fernando Cardinal, and Frei Beto, and O.P. Camilo Torres, who have been inspired by communists and in many places contributed to communist and communist-influenced movements as its members. I'm talking about a lot of this happened in South America. That's why you have a lot of communism and a lot of communist beliefs there, as if the corruption of the Catholic clergy were grounds for supporting Marxism. Many of my friends in the Party for Socialism and Liberation, for example, the Marxist-Leninist Party, are church-going Christians or folks without a grudge against their Christian upbringing. Are lots of people in the radical wing of the Democratic Socialists of America. The writer then describes Christianity as just another ideological faction alongside other factions such as communism. So literally it says Christianity is just an ideology. It's not a faith. It's so absolutely insane. The history of communism, whatever it might be, will always contain a history of Christianity and vice versa, whether members of either faction like it or not. Citing Marxist arguments, he makes the bizarre claim that the ownership of private property necessarily always leads to slavery, since property owners come to see other people as just another form of property to be owned. So this is a weird mentality that you have in obviously communist thought, that you can't own property because somehow you see people as property, and it's just absolutely insane. It's satanic. He says, capitalism emerged through the privatization of what was once public, like shared land. No, that's not true. As time went on, human beings themselves would become the private property of other human beings. Communists, on the other hand, are loving people, concerned above all for the good of the poor, even if they have occasionally strayed from their pure roots. Communisms have provided one of the few sustainable oppositions to capitalism, a global political order responsible for...
Sustainable?
Yeah. Global political order responsible for the ongoing suffering of millions. communism is a socio-political expression, has at times caused great human and ecological suffering, but any good communist is quick to admit as much. Communism is an unfinished product. That's what everybody keeps saying. It's just not done right. It's unfinished. So it was okay that that millions of people died throughout this in past 100 years due to this crazed ideology. And he says one would be tempted to suggest that if Marxism was a finished project, the deaths would be many times greater. That's in the author's opinion. He goes on to parallel Marxist, the Communist Manifesto, to Catholic teaching on the nature of private property. Although the Catholic Church officially teaches that private property is a natural right, he writes, this teaching also comes with the proviso that private property is always subordinate to the common good. Now, I would agree, and this is where you have the idea is to give. Giving is supposed to be to be voluntary, right? In Christianity, and I don't need to explain this to people because most sane people know this. But if I were to sit down with this person, I'd say, not grudgingly, out of necessity. God loves a cheerful giver. You can't make people, and not all Christians came together for common property. Throughout history, that was a time that they needed to come together for one time.
Sandhar says it is an order in the Catholic Church. Pope John Paul II was against these priests being commies.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
Belinda says, so how many more millions must die before they get communism right? Wicked Psych says, if you don't pay the government, they take your property and they regulate what you can do with your property.
So the idea is to get rid of all private property and make everything.
But that doesn't okay. So my cell phone is my property. This shirt that I'm wearing is my property. This hat is my property. So property isn't just your land. Okay, your body is your property, and so if they that's how far they can take it, and that's what we're seeing with the NHS and so on and so forth. When you hand over the government the rights to your property and say, listen, I don't have the right to any property, then you don't have the right to your own body, essentially, when it gets down to
what they accuse you of is what they're guilty of. It's this weird circular reasoning.
Right.
Because every time communism comes about, they say they take your body. Mm-hmm. They take your body, and you have to work, and you have to do what they tell you to do. You become slaves. Mm-hmm. Under communism, the Chinese people are not autonomous.
So what somebody accuses you of is what they're guilty of. And so when they say that owning property leads to slavery, actually it's communism that leads to slavery.
All the time. So I wanted to bring that to your forefront, and I really believe that that they have overplayed their hand, and I'm really glad about it because it's really I think it's really great because when they overplay their hand, then we get our autonomy back. So I was listening. This played. I don't usually listen to rap. Michelle used to listen to Lecrae a lot, and I want to play this. And I want to play this song with the lyrics in the background because
earlier in the show we
talked about
rebellion to a rebellious law is obedience to God, and the counterculture with PJW, Paul Joseph Watson, is that now we see Generation Z coming out and saying, you know what? Wearing a MAGA hat, that's rebellion. Reading your Bible, that's rebellion. Being a conservative and standing up for property rights and so on and so forth, that is now rebellion.
So when mankind fell, there was a force that went out into the world.
Right.
And it was the fallen nature and sin. Mm-hmm. And that's the baseline. Right. The fallen nature, okay? And what Christ comes to do and what God comes to do is we rebel against this fallen nature, and we embrace the natural way that God has for us to live that's healthy for our minds, healthy for our bodies, healthy for the planet. Right? And so, we're going to rebel against those types of capitalism that lead to pollution, like Monsanto, right? That lead to people dumping things into our water sources. There's a lot of rebellion that's good rebellion, and Jesus was the ultimate rebel against the people of the time.
Right.
But you're ultimately under God's law, okay? And you're not a rebel against good. You're a rebel for a force of good, because there's always going to be this force of evil. There's always going to be sin, and you're rebelling against that. That's the easy way. To rebel means to turn and go against something, right? So the force of the world says, hey, especially today, sleep around, open borders. There's a force in this world. And what you see happening in Hungary and Poland and Brazil, people are rebelling against this disgustingness that they found, Hong Kong, that doesn't lead to human happiness.
Yeah.
And you can rebel in a negative way, even against negativity. But I want to encourage people, which was the left do, I think, a lot with a lot of WikiLeaks people. I want to say, if you're going to rebel against evil, rebel against tyrants. And then you can set up good government, which you don't have to rebel against anymore. As this song will say, it shouldn't have to be this way. I shouldn't have to rebel against the force. I shouldn't have to turn against the tide of all the fishes and all the people going, the sheep going in one direction. We should all be going towards Christ. That's the easy way. Okay, so I don't feel like this is a permanent state to be in, but in Christianity and in the New Testament, it does talk about that. He says, you are aliens, strangers, foreigners in this world, okay? And we aren't of this world. And it's a constant battle until we die to be not a force for evil, which is easy, to be for a force for good, which takes a courage and strength and things like that.
So some of you may not enjoy this genre of music. I do. And so you are welcome to stay.
The words are good.
The words are fantastic, and I think you can enjoy them regardless. Rebel, one who refuses allegiance to, resists, or one who participates in organized resistance. We are the resistance chicks.
Right. We are the rebellion chicks. Can they see the words behind your head?
I can get down.
I'm in rebellion. I'm conform to the ways of this world for this age. I'm in rebellion. Welcome to the revolution. Jesus was a rebel, renegade, outlaw, sanctified, troublemaker, but he never sinned, no. And he lived his life by a different set of rules. The culture ain't approved, so you know they had to prove him. That's the way they do, man, they swear they so gangsta. Everyone the same, everybody do the same stuff. Tattoos, piercings, smoking up and drinking, money and sex, plus them extravagant weekends. Man, if that's the high life, I puff past that. You live evaporated like listen to gas. I guess I'm past that. I'm in rebellion. I'd rather have $1 in my pocket than $1 million. Instead of worship money, I won't over Elio. I remain a rebel while the rest of them just carry on. This is what I live for. It's the hill I'm buried on. If Jesus is the truth, that means one of us is very wrong. Think about it. I'm in rebellion. I know in our day, rebel means sinner. I'm in rebellion. But everyone is sinning, so it's no longer rebellious to sin. I'm in rebellion. Jesus was a rebel who was countercultural. I'm in rebellion. No glory in me. All glory to the King on the throne. You either love him or you leave him alone, but you can't do both. Yeah, I know you heard that once in a song. I pray you hear 10 more for your gone. Hey, listen up home. Stage is the corner, crowd is the streets. And I rap the bread of life because they dying to eat. Hey, I'm a rebel, you know the kind of die in the street. Cause you refuse to conform, won't eat the king's meat. Yeah, Christ rebelled by shunning the culture. He's eating with the sinners, giving Pharisees ulcers. He never got married, he was broke plus homeless. Yeah, that's the guy I roll with. Your boy got a wife, you know I never cheated. I'm praying for humility whenever I get heated. Forgot about the drugs, rebel against pornography. This is how it ought to be, only it's how it's gotta be. A rebel. I'm in rebellion.
Resistance check.
You're just a conformist. If you're drunk and naked, driving around on a loud motorcycle, smoking cigarettes and breaking commandments, being pregnant out of wedlock. Everyone's done that.
Everybody's done that. It's tired.
If you really want to be a rebel, read your Bible. Because no one's doing that. God's rebellion. That's the only rebellion left.
I like how they put this definition here at the end. Back that up a second and let's read it out loud for those that just
You really want to be a because no one's doing that.
Pause it. One, they add their own definition of a rebel. One who lives a lifestyle unashamed of Jesus Christ, no longer conforming to the patterns of this world.
Amen.
And that is what true rebellion is.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you guys to be a rebel today.
Resistance
chicks.
Or rooster.
Or, yeah, whatever.
Dude, resistance dude.
Yeah, if you're the resistance, you can be a resistant rooster. Resistance rooster. You're allowed. That's what we call the Kansas Cowboy. So that is definitely allowed. I'm glad that you guys were here with us today. It was a great show. Good job, Leah. BoJo is Prime Minister. We'll see how far that does go. I don't know. We're going to see if he can hold up to
we'll see how far that goes. Does
BoJo
words. Have the mojo to say no to the EU?
We came up with that.
We'll see how far it goes, but I don't know.
All right, you guys. We will see you back here on Tuesday. I'm not sure what time, but we are going to stream the Democrat debates, which I am terribly excited about.
Imagine playing that on loudspeakers while driving down the road in hundreds of diesel trucks during the next revolution.
That would be fantastic. Belinda says Jesus came from a wealthy family. I think you mean he didn't. He was a rebel for sure, turning over the money lenders' tables in the temple, and was a brave thing to do in those days. Absolutely.
Remember this: humility is far more underestimated than underappreciated.
Well said.
Michelle, how long does it take to braid your hair?
About 5 minutes. Maybe not even. Probably 3 minutes, actually. It goes pretty fast. It's brushing it out probably takes longer than getting it to braid.
He still wants Jerusalem at the end of the song.
Okay.
You got Lecrae, sorry.
You got Lecrae instead, I'm sorry. So anyway, put it on your calendar. Write it down somewhere. Tuesday, Resistance Chicks, Democrat
Corbyn
debates.
is a Marxist Trotsky. Yeah, he's a Marxist.
Trotskyite. And then we'll be back on Friday for a weekly roundup. But do
Tommy,
you know what's happening on
Communism
Thursday?
always has leaders with
Excuse
property.
me. Do you know what happens
Trump,
Thursday?
Rally, Trump, rally, Trump, rally, Trump, rally, going to Cincinnati.
Okay.
Going to Cincinnati.
You say it like it's not that far, like it's far away. Going to Cincinnati for us is
he's
literally
coming
like...
to Cincinnati is what I meant. He's
Okay.
coming. We're in
and
Cincinnati.
we're going to go downtown.
This is our town. He's coming
Which we're
here.
really excited about. So we'll be streaming live while we're waiting in line. We'll be getting footage and interviews with people. And I have an idea that I haven't presented to you or Patriot Gallery, but I think what I want to do to make sure that the stream is available for you guys.
Aren't we just going to just record?
I think when President Trump is speaking, my plan is for Patriot Gallery to be streaming it here along with us in the corner. So we'll be streaming from Mass Faith 3, and she'll be streaming the actual stream on Resistance Chicks with us in the little box in the corner, so that you can be listening to the speech and then we can give commentary. So that will be for me to do and for you not to have to understand. We can definitely make that happen. It will be very, very simple. So that way you guys will we'll probably stream Right Side Broadcasting, and then you'll get our reactions simultaneously with that.
No, it won't work.
Yeah, it will, 100%.
It won't work because they jam our signal.
We'll be able to, I know, but so it will be choppy, right? We will be choppy, but that's the whole point. They will be able to watch President Trump's.
Right. They jammed our signal. We couldn't get anything.
I know. They will be able to watch. That's my plan. But either way, I'm going to have, even if we can't get a signal out, I'm going to have Patriot Gallery stream.
Yeah, you're going to have to just wait for video later, because a lot of it's going to just have to be recorded.
Right. So Maia says, we need Resistance Chicks music. That song didn't count. We have gone 12 minutes over for our 2-hour show. So we're going to sign off. And I wish that we had a song for you maybe next time. But you guys can go to SoundCloud and go to our SoundCloud there. Resistance Chicks Mom, Patriot Gallery has been putting it
we
in
talked too much this time.
in the description. So you guys can go and listen to Resistance Chicks music all you would like.
We got to keep it under 2 hours.
You're going to see a lot of us this week, starting on Tuesday for the Democrat debate, and this is my excited face. I'm so stinking excited. All right, we love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember,
it's not just conspiracy theory.
If it's actually the truth.
We got a package.
We did get a package.
We'll talk about that later. It's going to be funny.
Yeah, I don't know when we're going to do that, but it's not. There's no we involved when you are going to do that.
Challenge.
We're not that kind of channel, just FYI, by the way. So this is somebody sent Leah something very hot. Michelle is not going to eat it, and apparently it's a thing for people. So
there are certain things I will try and certain things I won't. I read the reviews. It's not that bad.
Not going to touch it. I might not even smell it.
All right, I gotta go.
All right, we love you guys. God bless.
was cold.